talk to you today about covenant and contract. I want to speak to you today about covenant and contract real quick. Let me just get into this because it's a lot of talk going on about consumer laws and how contracts and things of that nature. But I want to get into somewhat of the characteristics and origin of these two of this covenant and these contracts and these so-called how they play in consumer law and all these different codes, rules, and regulations that have been developed. Essentially, a covenant is a binding promise of far-reaching importance in the relation between individual groups and nations that has social, legal, religious, and other aspects. It's a promise or agreement under consideration, usually under seal or guarantee between the two parties. And the seal or symbol or guarantee is that which distinguishes covenant from modern contract. Now, a contract is a commercialized covenant. The covenant dealt with not only the comprehension between the people, but also the divine nature of our interactions. It basically included whatever your so-called God or your higher power was. They were included into the agreements that different people made, right? So even modern day treaties or even, constitutions, they fall under covenant rather than contract. Some people think that, the Constitution is the contract document. No, it's a covenant because they have to take an oath, which incorporates the acknowledgement of an existing higher power. So once you include that oath, that then becomes covenant. And covenants deal with land. And not just society, but the land in which that society inhabits. Whereas contracts are watered down, commercialized versions of contract. In fact, to commercialize something means to debase or water it down. And that's essentially to say that contracts deal with the laws of the sea. Covenants deal with the laws of the land. Constitutions, treaties, these are the laws of the land. Contracts are private matters that deal with the law of the sea. This is their commercial documents. You have a lot of people talking about consumer law these days and using that to fit your consumer credit and debt and all of this. I mean, those things are cool, but realize that you're still dealing with contract law at the end of the day. Most of these codes, rules, and regulations, licenses, things of that nature deal with contract. Now, another vast difference between the covenant and the contract. A covenant has to be expressed and under seal in order for it to be valid. A contract doesn't have to be expressed, meaning I don't have to actually say what I'm offering, and you don't have to actually state that you accept it. Contracts deal with implied consent. It's implied, it's unspoken, it's a tacit agreement, a silent agreement. I don't necessarily have to tell you what I'm doing. I'm moving in secret against you because of a secret contract that you created that you didn't realize. For instance, when you step into a courtroom, say you're under arrest and you've been charged with an offense, a bunch of words that we use and that we don't really comprehend the meaning of in their legal aspects. But let's say that happens to you and they say, oh, you've been charged with this, that, and third. Do you understand these charges against you? A thinking man that asks himself, why are you asking me that question? Why do I have to understand? What does it matter if you brought me here? When they want you to answer yes so that you can affirm that contract. so you can validate what they're about to do to you. Now, by saying no, what happens? They're going to keep asking you the question, and then they're going to try to find a way to ensnare you to contract with them. But you don't realize that that's what they're trying to create with you, because you weren't taught that, and they're dealing with contracts, which allows them to move off of implications, and which allows them to create contracts that you're not aware of. And this is a supreme difference between contract and covenant. And covenant, like I said, deals with divine reality. It deals with the higher power. So when they take an oath of office, they're not contracting, they're making a covenant. Now, I'm not a covenant expert per se. I've just studied contracts and I've studied covenants. Where is it? Covenants may have been much more instrumental in society than it has been realized. By far, the most evidence for international treaties in the ancient world come from Hittite sources, which were contemporary with events that preceded and led up to the formation of the ancient Israelite Federation of Tribes in Palestine. The treaty form and written text was highly developed and flexible, but usually exhibited the following structure: preamble, historical prologue, stipulations, provisions for deposit and public reading, witnesses, cursings and blessings formula. Now let's get down to, what was that? What was the stipulations? Where was I at? Provisions for deposit and public reading. Provision is made for deposit of the treaty in the temple and for periodic public reading. Because the temple is the house of the God, the written document was placed before the watchful attention of the deity. The treaty obligations, however, were also binding upon the vassal citizenry, and so as stipulated intervals, the text was read to the assembly, both as a reminder and a warning. A covenant had to be read at stipulated time periods so that everyone could be literally on the same page and know what came with them being a part of this society. Now, they use the term vassal, and vassal is held to be one who owes an allegiance to a lord, because they were speaking about it, in an international treaty perspective. And treaties were usually drawn up between two parties who may have been at some type of conflict with each other, and they had to come to some type of terms, right? But essentially, whenever you're dealing with two parties and they have to come to some type of legal agreement, you are creating some type of treaty or covenant once you invoke that higher power. And you put that seal on it, is definitely, so we know that many documents that we see are seals. And if you really get into it, if you look at a dollar bill, in God we trust, and it has the great seal of the United States of America on it, because this dollar bill is essentially it's a promissory note, and at the same time it's a covenant. But we'll get into that another time. The main thing is contracts. Contracts don't have to be expressed. They could simply just be implied, and people could get ensnared and not know what they're doing. And everything mostly is running off the contract and the Uniform Commercial Code. All contracts are commerce, and commerce deals with the C. The MER, M-E-R, in commercial means C. is not dealing with the laws of the land. Contracts do not deal with the laws of the land. Anything that you have to sign your signature on is essentially a contract. Now, what they did was uh, convoluted everything because they started creating these corporations, also known as states, right? But which are essentially colonies, and they put seals, signs, and seals on everything. Your signature is a sign. They're different, state of New Jersey with their logos and their flag are essentially